There is an analogy that crude oil cannot run the car. Instead, the petrol extracted from crude oil does. Now, you might be thinking, how does that even relate to blockchain? Well, let me tell you. There are thousands, if not thousands, of applications that are built on top of blockchains. One thing they all share fundamentally in common is the need to be able to access the right data in a meaningful way. Today, we talk about an upcoming altcoin gem, which I believe will certainly give the graph a run for their money. Stay tuned. My name is Firoz from decentralizedchain.com. Welcome to another video. If this is your first time here and you want to learn more about crypto, whether it's news, insights, or analysis to help you get that edge, start now by subscribing and clicking the bell so you do not miss a thing. Now, as we normally do on the show, we are giving away $100 of Bitcoin, so make sure to follow the rules in the pinned comment below to be entered for a chance to win. Now, with all that out of the way, the DeFi space is in need of a data solution that solves the problems that any developer would ask themselves when building a resilient dApp. It's needed to make customer-centric solutions. Is data rich enough to serve my needs? Is the data real-time and reliable? How easy is it to integrate the data provider? How flexible is the data source to accommodate change requests? These are some of the questions that a developer would ask themselves when they go about building a new dApp that obviously needs to integrate with a blockchain. Now, specific to DeFi, one of the key ones is how fast a new protocol can be indexed from the time I request it. It's fair to say we need information from blockchain and not just the data. Now, given blockchain stores data in an encoded and non-linear format, we would want something that makes sense. And whilst you may be thinking, hold on, the graph does that, think again. Today, I'll speak with the founder of Unmarshal and find out how they are doing all the heavy lifting to make data relatable to a wide variety of DeFi use cases across multi-chains like Polkadot, Ethereum, and Smart Chain. But let's jump into it and find out a bit more. Right. Hi, Manohar. Welcome to the channel. Great to have you here, and certainly really appreciate you taking the time out today to talk about Unmarshal, which is making some waves, should I say, in the community. How have you been?
Yeah, I'm great, and thanks for having me here.
Always a
It's
pleasure.
great to talk to the community.
Right. So, I mean, let's get straight in. I mean, I think for our viewers, more than anything else, I mean, what is it that Unmarshal is actually trying to do in this space?
Yeah, I think as an engineer myself, right, I
Mm,
find decentralized finance, this DeFi ecosystem, right, kind of lacks tools to kind of access the data. Like we all know that data is the fuel for digital world,
mm,
and especially financial data, right? So and there's enormous data in the blockchains. There are like tons of blockchains, and there's huge data in each of them,
mhm.
but there should be like tools to kind of access them. Like if you can't directly access blockchain, like you can only access block by block, but there should be proper tools where people can kind of extract exact data they want to in a format that kind of makes sense. So raw data is not useful for
Yeah.
anyone. The bunch of hashes and
Hmm.
hexadecimals, that's all that's stored on the blockchain, which is not useful for a lot of people. The data is only useful when it is turned into information.
Mm,
That's what Unmarshal does. So Unmarshal is a network of indexers, decoding tools, and transformation tools, which kind of puts the data into business context. If it is wallet, then it's transactions and balances. If it is DeFi protocol, it's protocol positions, your liquidity positions, your
mm,
liquidity pairs, how much money you have earned by lending, and what is the interest rate, etc. So we kind of extract this useful information out of blockchain, and we serve to clients in multiple formats. Like it may be APIs, push notifications, WebSockets. So these are all the ways to communicate the data. But I think like for the end users, it's like if somebody wants to access the blockchain data, irrespective of what it is
mm.
and how they want to access it, Unmarshal should be able to help them. So this
So,
is our long-term
so,
goal.
so it almost sounds like it's a toolkit of applications to a certain extent. Then so would you say that the dedicated end user here really is more someone from a development perspective? Because it wouldn't. I'm thinking that it wouldn't necessarily be somebody like me who is a true end consumer of a product, but more so it's someone that's creating creating a product for the end consumer, and this, I suppose, toolkit allows it allows developers to easily to be able to do that rather than having to maybe start from scratch or create something from bespoke.
Yes. So more than toolkits, you can say that like we also have like in-house data, right? So we are complete end-to-end data providers. People, I mean, like if somebody wants some data, they can just ask us, and then we will be able to provide them. And yeah, obviously we are like B2B product. We won't directly talk to I mean, like end users, serve end users. We'll be serving users like wallets, DeFi
Yep.
protocols, new protocols, and then through them we'll be obviously helping end users by making the products the end users
Got it.
using much more easier to access.
So I'd say, for our viewers who might not be familiar with some of the terminology we might use, B2B is business to business, and usually that's associated with B2C, which is business to consumer. So a consumer being someone who's using a wallet at the end of the process, and the B2B element would be the team responsible for creating the wallet and using the provisions that Unmarshal has in place in order to provide that to the consumer. So it's
I think
it's always handy to put that out there.
if we have to like make our viewers familiar with what
Yeah.
Unmarshal does, if they know like what the graph, the GRT
Yep.
token, we are in the similar space as
Mm.
them.
Well, it's interesting you say that because I'm leading on to my next question here, which is, whilst it certainly sounds like you're bringing what I would say much needed features into this space, to be able to help, I would say, developers create much more customer centric tools, usable tools. I wouldn't say this space is saturated, for sure, but there are some competitors already in this space that are already well positioned and quite well known. The Graph was one of them that you mentioned. There's others like BitQuery. There's others like Covalent, who which are a new project as well. How do you, I would say, on one level, compare to the competition, or whether you're working in line with them? And secondly, obviously by comparing some, if I take the Graph, for example, it does have quite a big market share. And even when I look at market caps, I'm not necessarily going into pricing here, but ultimately what you're delivering through Unmarshal is, to a certain extent, looking to take some of that market share, right? Because you need to get users from somewhere. So how do you plan to try and migrate some of these existing users who are already, I would say, either maybe familiar with the Graph, or very well versed with the Graph, that not necessarily know what Unmarshal is? How does that work exactly?
Yeah, sure. I think like to answer this question, I can briefly talk about my previous experience
Mm.
as well. So I was consulting for one of like major aggregation layer, some sort of wallet on multiple chains. So I was consulting for them, and then try to find the data, because for wallet, like obviously for the it's data is bread and butter, right? So we
Yeah.
tried to you make use of existing data providers, including Graph, but we couldn't get exactly what we want. That's how Unmarshal was born. So you can't actually build wallets using the data that's provided by Graph. We
Okay.
obviously have great respect for Graph. They've been great bunch of guys, and whatever they are trying to do is useful at like certain places.
Hmm.
But we thought like it's not covering the complete ecosystem.
Okay.
So we thought there's a chance to coexist with people like Graph.
Hmm.
So we started concentrating on the middleware. So they provide like data for someone like Uniswap or maybe Aave. But what we try to do is like take it from where Graph is left and reach all the way till the DeFi applications.
Hmm.
Someone like wallets, example Frontier, maybe Zero Swap or Odds, or we partnered with Staffy, and we'll be partnering with few more people. So
Hmm.
it's like until you reach the DeFi application. So the integration, the way we believe Web3 should be built is as a composable unit, right? So there should be like very thin integration layers, and people partner with each other to do specific tasks. So
Hmm.
I'll do one thing, and the next person does something else which is not overlapping, and we each of us, both of us, like sit very close to each other, so there's not much of integration efforts, right? So
Yeah.
that's what we wanted to create. I think that's how we started. So we started as someone who sits between Graph and the DeFi applications. but later we realized we couldn't make use of graph to full extent the way we wanted, so we started indexing as well. So
Okay.
if you consider graph, it'll be probably 10 to 20% of what we are trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
They are trying to be more generic, but we are very specific to clients. So we work with each client on personal basis, so we don't ask our clients to code. We'll work with them personal basis, and we try to give exact data they want, so then they don't have to write any code or any integration as far as data is concerned. And also, I think one more thing with the both Covalent and Graph is lacking is like data has to be served in multiple formats, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not just one API.
Yeah.
It's not just one GraphQL that fits all of them. So it should be like any format. Like if you ask me to give data in a letter, just use a paper and pen, like fill it
Yeah.
up and send it to you. I mean, it's a way of delivering the data.
Mm-hmm.
So we wanted to kind of cover all those things. So few people want notifications whenever there's a transaction in wallet. It's obviously data, blockchain data, that's
Yeah.
transaction. So we'll deliver it in using notifications, or maybe WebSockets and webhooks, etc. So we deliver data in any format that clients ask us to.
Okay. So I mean, let's move a bit more onto token actually, because I am curious. Beyond secondary market values, when you list them, what benefit is there in terms of actually holding on to an unmarshal token exactly? What does it provide?
Yeah, sure. So when you talk about data, right,
Mm.
it's not just what's stored on blockchain, but there should also, obviously it's public data, but obviously if you store it in decentralized network, something like blockchain, it has
Mm-hmm.
its own verification process, right? But if you take that data, store it somewhere else, and if you try to provide to others, there'll become some sort of trust factor, right? Like we
Mm-hmm.
want to kind of avoid that. So each of this trust, we want to bring in the verification process to this data. Data has to be correct, and this data has to be signed by some validators.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll be bringing in validators into the network. And also, it's a huge space, right? It's not something we can do, one person or one team can do.
Yep.
There are like close to 20, 50 major layer one chains,
Mm-hmm.
and there are lots of side chains and lots of layer 2 protocols, right? So
Okay.
what we want to do is kind of distribute this load across indexers. So we'll be providing them the nodes to run. They'll be maintaining the node and indexing the data, and there'll be validators who will validate for the correctness of this data.
Mm-hmm.
And there'll be obviously a data deployer, some sort of role that uniquely Unmarshal has, which is to work with our decentralized applications to build exactly what they want. So will be working on Unmarshal is not just a centralized network; it'll be um, a, a decentralized
Mm.
network where there are a lot more roles, and each of them will be compensated through the native token. Clients
Okay.
would be, and because there's a verification and validation involved, all the validators, indexers need to stake the amount so that whenever there's misbehaving, the clients are
Yes.
compensated using these penalties, and clients would obviously paying the network through the native token,
Got it.
and they'll be staking as well.
So if I was to summarize the token in terms of token utility, there's a staking element from it. There's
Mhm.
obviously a fee generation in terms of being used throughout the platform. And in addition, from a trust perspective, where you have others working with you to validate data, to be validators, to be nodes, I suppose if there is any type of bad actor in that situation, then there is a penalty in terms of they fundamentally end up losing what they've staked. In order to incentivize good behavior on the network.
Yes. I
Okay,
think
got it.
in fact, if you look at our token metrics,
Mm,
which we released recently on our blogs,
yep.
uh, we have a like few months clip until
Yeah,
the
no,
token.
I think we'll speak about that a bit later on actually, because I am. It was actually quite interesting when I saw your token metrics, and I think for viewers actually this is quite an important part to note as well. But just before we do go and actually talk about your roadmap, and because obviously public launch is going to be a big topic throughout most communities, let's talk a little bit more about your team actually. So I mean, in a nutshell, what's your background?
I'm a software engineer with 8+ of years of experience. So I worked with a few of major ride-hailing firms in Southeast Asia.
Mm-hmm.
I consulted with Gojek for almost 2 to 3 years, where we built delivery services. They
Mm-hmm.
have some courier service which you can take like some item from point A to point B. And from there, I moved on to Singapore, where I joined Grab. Grab
Okay.
is another ride-hailing platform. In
Mm-hmm.
fact, Grab acquired Uber's operation in Southeast Asia.
Right.
So we used to make like we used to make like tens of millions of bookings per day.
Mm.
So I was handling the booking and allocation service. Yeah, I come with a huge engineering background,
Mm.
and in the back in for last 2 years, I was working on blockchain related consulting gigs as well.
And if we look slightly beyond yourself and your wider team, anything notable within the sort of wider Unmarshal team that you can share?
Yeah, sure. I think Unmarshal has like close to 9 people now, and most of them are like it'll be surprising to know that most of them are my ex-colleagues, are my people who went to university
Yeah.
with me.
Mm-hmm.
CTO Shiv, he is we both went to same university. We both were classmates, and we joined the same company. And Shiv and I consulted Gojek together, and then from there I moved on to Grab, and he continued with Navi, which was started by founder of Flipkart.
Okay.
And we have Nishant. He has around close to 14 years of IT experience in
Mm-hmm.
various client facing roles. And we have Yogesh, who's our marketing head, and he has close to 6 years of sales
Okay.
and marketing experience. We have Rakshita, who's our social media head, and we have Santosh, Abhishek, a lot of engineers who are
Mm.
working with us.
Quite a solid all round team. In terms of, I mean, and you mentioned earlier before partners and advisors. So can you share some of the major ones that you're working with at the moment? And I suppose beyond just sharing who they are, I'm curious what does that partnership actually mean?
Yeah, so we have like few people who invested in us because they a bit believed the idea. So
Mm-hmm.
few of them might be like the existing founders of major DeFi applications. Will be releasing that. I think we should have taken this interview at least few days later, where I would be comfortable sharing all the
No,
names.
that's fine. No, that's fine.
Yeah, sure. So, but like there are a lot of people
Mm.
who we are partnered as advisors from various roles. Yeah, cool.
Okay, so for our viewers, stay tuned. There will be stuff
Yeah,
coming down the pipeline in a couple of days.
yeah, you can watch out for our blog. So we'll be
Okay.
releasing advisors.
Hmm. Okay, so let's talk a bit about roadmap. Uh, what do we have coming up? What's coming up in the next quarter?
Yeah, sure. I think that it's a eventful year for us at Unmarshal.
Mm.
So with Q1 we achieved a lot of stuff. So we worked on our the API engine. We indexed
Hmm.
5 different chains: Ethereum, Binance Smart Chain, Polkadot, and Staffy, and Edgeware. And next few days it'll be like next quarter would be much more eventful. So where we are talking to many more chains to index.
Hmm.
It starts from Elrond, Algorand, Avalanche, and even Matic. So there are a lot of folks that we are talking to. And currently, I think one thing we are really proud of is we have built a complete ecosystem around Binance Smart Chain, where we have APIs, smart notifications, which would be game changer in the DeFi space, where clients can directly send their users notification without having to do anything at all. So if you are using a Uniswap to make a transaction, once the transaction is completed and it goes and sits in blockchain, so we would be directly sending you the notification says, hey, you swapped X amount to X token to Y token. And if somebody sends you the money, you'll be receiving a notification saying, hey, you received X USDT. And nothing, your clients, the applications you are using don't have to write any code, so
Mm.
they'll be directly, like they'll be able to leverage Unmarshal's decoders to kind of send these one line notifications.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I've always been a big supporter of when I say big supporter, I think one of the things that I've always been missing within the whole crypto industry, and I say it so many times on this show, is what I say is user experience or customer centricity. It's making it easier for end users to be able to use the solutions like you do today with any other application, whether it's Google, whether it's Outlook, whatever it may have been. You've got simple things like notifications. Those things don't exist. You generally do have to build it from scratch, or you have to build a scraper that monitors the blockchain, that monitors specifically for your wallet. If something's come in, then you can do that. Yes, you do have the likes of Etherscan, and if you do put in a watched ERC20 address or Ethereum address within there, then yes, it does give you notifications on when transactions do happen. But actually, if you're only looking for a specific transaction, i.e. whenever this amount of USDT has entered, yes, you don't really get that actually at the end of the day. And that's, I suppose, one of the many facets of Marshall, but it is an important one to note because every day we rely on notifications when it comes to using our phones. If someone's texted us, if someone hasn't, whether we want them on or off, the ability is there to turn it on. Now, the other thing that I wanted to talk about actually is
just a bit to add here, since you spoke about customer centric solutions, right? I'm just like writing a blog that talks about customer happiness quotient, such as like your net promoter score and
NPS.
What is the clients customer satisfaction score, etc. These are the things we would like talk about really well at Web2. At Grab, in fact, like we had major milestones, major projects specifically dedicated to improve NPS and NSATs, right? But that's something which is really missing in nobody talks about them in Web3. So I'm writing a blog that we want to bring this back to Web3, bring this to Web3 as well. So we'll be talking about what happens when service goes down and what happens if we don't serve well. And like these are the things we should start talking about in Web3, and Unmarshal is happy to kind of lead that way.
No, I've been going on about it for a long time on this show. My background is in creating customer centric solutions, so for me, I feel very passionately about it. Whenever we have new projects coming into crypto, for me fundamentally, it's all well and good that you're doing this, and we're going to get this or we're going to get that, but actually, what does it really mean for the end user? What does it mean for somebody like me at the other end of a phone or at the other end of a keyboard? How do I interpret that as a good user experience or a bad user experience? So no, really looking forward to your blog actually. But in terms of other things looking forward to, one of the things clearly a lot of viewers will be asking is when is your public launch?
That's
what can you share?
Yeah, well, I think probably it'll be probably somewhere in the very like first week of April,
Okay.
which will be like announcing about that as well. Like we'll be announcing our public distribution partner as well.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I think like we've kind of working on the network, so it has to go hand in hand, right? So we'll start working on the decentralized network aspect as well. So yeah, pretty lot of exciting stuff for Unmarshal in next few months.
And I think one of the interesting things that I noticed, we won't go into too much detail just because there is a blog on your site if anybody wants to see it. But when it comes to discussing things like token metrics, what I did notice initially was that for the token generation event, there doesn't really seem to be a lot released from the seed rounds or the private rounds. Actually, this is like almost 10%, and then you have a cliff pretty much where all tokens are fully distributed. I think somewhere like 13 months over a period of 13 months down the line, which is always good to see. Good to see from a perspective that if we look for those who are looking from an investment perspective, I think one thing that the public, I suppose, could be rest assured is that there isn't going to be a significant dump of tokens, which is never a nice thing to see on any chart when any platform launches. So that's pretty handy. And I suppose before we wrap up, one of the things that I do like to talk about is, and I feel quite strongly about, is community, right? I mean, in crypto, all these projects that are moving, massively forward, regardless of whether they're an enterprise grade or institutional grade projects, most of these projects start off with a strong community backing, because without that, you're not necessarily going to get very far. Or you may, but it's certainly a much harder road. And the interesting thing is that, there are various projects that come out which I would say that the everyday person, the everyday consumer can see, can understand, can potentially use. For example, if a new wallet comes out, that's easy for somebody to understand that there's a new wallet, and I can put funds in, I can take funds out, I can swap funds, etc. Whereas here, I know that you're primarily focused around B2B, and really from an everyday consumer perspective, I would say that concept is quite difficult to grasp. So my question is, when it comes to, I suppose, engaging with your community, making sure they're with you for the journey, what are your plans around that? Because it's a different community set, and it may well be, I mean, I don't know the exact demographics of the community, but it may well be that your community is, the 2,000 plus odd that you have in your group are all developers, right? Or from a development background, so they get it, they understand it. But how does that work? I mean, what's your plans around community engagement and keeping them with you for the journey?
Yeah. I think it's a great question. I think like I have a few points to add there, right? Like one, even though we are like B2B customer, like B2B solution, I think people in Web3 are like kind of, they understand end to end. Like that is kind of evident because of the success of the graph, right? Like the graph were also B2B, and like they kind of made the huge success. They achieved this success because people understood like what it is. And it's like Web3 audience are like really like much more understanding and much more a kind of tech savvies, because that's why they are in something as cool as decentralized finance, right? That's having said that, we also want to kind of include people who are like not technical, and we want to have them in our community. So we have even in our network, we have roles such as delegators, and we have who can just stake the money, and they can delegate the staking power to indexers and other people, so that they can also participate in the network. And we are planning out to come up with the ambassador, I mean like our network ambassador program, where they kind of understand much more in detail. And also we kind of partnering with all the major applications that people use at end-to-end day-to-day basis. And if they see that it's powered by Unmarshal's data, I think then we're gonna get like a lot of community folks. And obviously at the end, we also partnering with a lot of people who kind of understand these things and can teach non-tech audience like in much better way, such as you kind of delegate, you kind of take the technical knowledge and talk to people in the language they understand. So we would like to work people like you to kind of spread the word about Unmarshal and gain the larger community.
Right. Well, look, I mean, Manohar, thank you so much for coming on the show today and talking about Unmarshal. It sounds like something that is much needed in this space, and certainly complementing what we already have in this space as well. So, before we wrap up, any last words for our viewers? Where do they need to go to find the latest and greatest and stay up to date with what's happening?
Yeah, sure. I think even like the thing, because we love Unmarshal, our people loving Unmarshal is because like if you want to be like if you want to if people want to build applications such as wallets, DeFi protocols of compounds, harvest, pancake swaps, etc., they need tools to do it, right? Like much faster way.
Yeah.
If everyone that's coming into industry needs to index the data to grow, I think like people we won't have like as many protocols as we have today. So it's important to kind of build the tools in the ecosystem, such as Unmarshal, to grow as fast as DeFi is growing. I think like DeFi has an exponential growth, and if we have to support that growth from engineering point of view, I think we need tools like Unmarshal. And with respect to learning more about Unmarshal, we have our website. I think probably you can include in your
all in the
chat.
description below.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So about Marshall.io, and we have documentation, and we have a Telegram group. People can join us, and like I'm pretty open and available in the Telegram. So I keep answering questions, even though people kind of get bored of.
I've seen it. Yeah, no, well, I mean I think that just comes with the territory, answering the same question 100 times, but
yeah,
perfect.
but it's something you love, right? Like you want to
Yeah.
keep talking about it, and you want people to understand what you are trying to do. It's something which we are really proud of.
I
And what
mean,
we
Telegram isn't, my personal view is Telegram isn't the easiest. It's great to kind of get that in the moment conversation going, but then if somebody new comes in, actually, and some don't really even read pinned messages, to be honest. So, and conversations get asked and they move up so quickly that you just end up refreshing the whole thing again. So, right. Well, look, Manohar, thank you so much. I'm looking forward to your launch, and I wish you all the success with Unmarshal, and hopefully have you back on the show. Once we're in full flight.